Okay, this is the frontage first. Let me tell this one. The fence is out. The fence is outside of the required front setback, 15 feet setback. So the fence exceeds 3 feet after 15 feet. And again, here at the corner, you can see the fence is not completed. The lattice on the top still needs to be completely done. So here is the fence from the property. At corners, some areas like, let me show you arrow. Here, the fence is higher than 8 feet. And that is the reason at some areas, the fence exceeds 8 feet because of the way the property slopes down. The terrain is different. And let me go on the, okay, here is, I want to show you. The property on this side is on a higher elevation, and neither of those two properties have a privacy. The property on this side can directly look into the applicant lot, and also the applicant can look into the neighbor's story, floor, second floor. So both neighbors agree to have a fence to the sides to create privacy on both sides. And in the future, the neighbor on this lot wants also to build a fence. And that fence would extend to where the fence currently is located. So from this corner to this corner, the neighbors also would add another fence to create that private backyard for themselves. The applicant tried to show the elevation, the height of the proposed fence, and they did their best to show why the fence is at some locations higher than 8 foot because of, again, the way the property slopes down. So about public comments, I have received 2 emails from 2 adjacent neighbors. Let me go back to who are the neighbors emailed me. So the neighbor at 1104 and 1055, both of them emailed me in favor and support of the project. And the neighbor at 1055, Frank, emailed me this morning. And if you are okay, I can show his email and go over his email about the comment he has provided. Is that okay? Can I do that?
Absolutely, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. So here is the email from Frank this morning he sent. I'm going to read his email. Dear Zoning Administrator Monet Shekali, I hope all is well. In regard to the fence in question, I own the house next door and share the fence line in question with Aaron Callahan. We discussed and agreed on this design to ensure safety and privacy between our properties. As both of our homes are on a hill slope, the fence was designed to grade from high to low to provide maximum privacy to both of us. While we are enjoying our properties, gardens, yard, in my case, without the fence line, the moment I step onto my back patio, I can see into Mr. Callahan's backyard, and they can see anyone on my side, as well as my home as well. My home is on a foundation, and therefore the back porch is elevated off the ground level, which can be seen in the photo, white pergola on the left. And the proposed fence height helps to give us privacy from one another. With this in mind, I hope the city will approve the minor conditional use permit for the fence higher than 8 feet. I understand in speaking to Erin that all the other direct neighbors have also given their support approvals. Thanks in advance for your time and consideration. So again, this is from this neighbor. Let me show here, this neighbor. So provided the email in favor and support of this project. And I have received also a phone call from a neighbor that is not in favor of the proposed fence. The neighbor said that the proposed fence is out of character, destroying the character of a neighborhood, and it doesn't look like any other fence in this neighborhood. So the staff response is that the fence is going to be between 2 properties. It's not readily visible from the street. And if the adjacent neighbor adds another fence along the street, so only part of the fence along the street would be visible. The remaining portion will be completely screened and be behind the property. As for CEQA, the proposed project has been reviewed in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act and qualifies for a Class 3 exemption under Section 15303, in that the fence is construction of an accessory structure. And with that, the Planning and Economic Development Department recommends that the zoning administrator, by resolution, approve a minor conditional use permit for the property located at 1105 Crest Drive. And that was staff presentation. Apologies for the mistake I made here.
Great, thank you, Ms. Shikali, for that thorough presentation. Is the applicant in today's
Yes.
meeting and would the
Oh,
applicant-
Callahan. I see applicant Callahan. Yes, he is available.
Okay, great. And so we'll invite the applicant to make any presentation or comments.
May I speak?
Yes, good morning. Yes, I do believe that you are unmuted and can speak.
Wonderful. I just like to state that we've lived here for maybe about a year. There was no fence prior, and with that, we are a young family. We're trying our best to live in this day and age. We made this fence based on the time was when it was during COVID, when there was an insane price spike on lumber. We also realized that we're living in a fire zone. So the fence was constructed like this with in mind of price, fire safety, and also it's cost economical for us. So I understand that someone disapproved of the look of it, but that was one of our three reasons why we chose our fence and the way it looks.
Okay, great. Thank you for those comments and especially for sharing the background on some of the decisions you made with regard to materials and why you want to construct this fence. For both the applicant and Ms. Shikali, as we're looking at the front of the property at 1105 to the left of the property, how far beyond the front of the existing residence would the fence extend?
Are you talking about this portion?
Yes.
Oh, Erin, can you answer that question? Or maybe see, hold on. 18 feet. So it's 18 feet from back of the sidewalk.
Right, but how is in relation to the front of the house then? Where might the front of the house be located from back of sidewalk?
Let me see. Okay, so
Yeah, so does that red line represent where the fence would end? Or is
almost
that just generally where it's located?
it's almost here in this location. Actually, let me see if I can zoom a little bit in. It's, Erin, can you correct me? Is 18 feet? This is an old picture, actually. There was a previous fence here that was removed.
So currently in the very front exterior is a 3-foot fence sitting on our retaining wall. So I'm not sure if that was what was in question.
Okay, so I see that. Go back to that previous picture there. So where is the house, the front of the house in relationship to the portion of the new fence with the corrugated metal that we're looking at right now?
So on the left is, I'm sorry if I'm not understanding your question, but on the left is Crest Drive. There is that 3-foot fence, and that extends 18 feet from the retaining wall, and then the corrugated fence then starts.
Erin, is aligned with the front of the house here, the fence?
Yes, that is in line, and it also was built to start there based on the fact that our neighbor's home will then be able to build a side fence for their backyard.
Perfect. That's what I was getting at. Thank
Sorry.
you. No worries. And then for Ms. Shikali, is it your understanding that the neighbor would also have to submit an application for a residential fence minor conditional use permit in order to construct that portion of the fence on 1055?
Well, here is the thing. I'm not sure what they are exactly proposing. And actually, I see a name Frank in attendees. I wonder if Frank is the neighbor who can also mention or talk about what they are proposing. I don't know exactly what's the height of the fence. I just know that they want to secure their backyard to provide the privacy. because right now, as you can see, the neighbor here doesn't have any fence and it's completely open, his backyard. So let me see. Yes, Frank has raised his hand, so maybe
Right,
Frank is the
and
neighbor.
Frank, I think we
Great.
have you on mic. So yeah, Frank, if you're the property owner at 1055, maybe if you could talk with us about your plans to fence your property as well.
Mr. Zoning Administrator, have we opened for public comment yet?
Well, this one, if Frank is the adjacent property owner, I can take comment from him with regard to the discussion we're having now.
Gotcha. Okay.
But if Frank is just a member of, if Frank is a member of the public and not the adjacent property owner, then we should wait.
Gotcha. My apologies.
That's okay.
Frank, you are unmuted if you want to accept the prompt.
Hi, good morning, zoning administrator. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, thank you. I am the adjacent property owner. I guess first, from the phone call, to answer the question, I think the connecting fence to give us privacy from the street, we haven't designed it yet, but we can probably stay within the limit because the height isn't really an issue when you're in our backyard looking onto the street, right? So even a 3, 4, 5, 6 foot fence is probably going to give us plenty of privacy from the street, right?
Sure.
The major thing in question seems to be obviously the fence that runs parallel between our two properties, right, and the slope. And so whether or not we need a permit, I guess, what is the height for allowed on the fence?
So maximum
8 feet?
allowed height is 8 feet with 2 feet lattice, right? And it has to be outside of the corner setback, which is 15 feet.
Yeah, so I don't think we would need lattice in the front, and 8 feet seems like plenty for our property, right? So to corner off our yard or garden. And so I don't see us going any higher than 8 feet. But what was necessary was the slope in the back that was, required us to go to the 8 feet and then to have the lattice so that we could have privacy between our two households.
Sure.
And
great.
my other comment was, from the phone call you got, and to Erin's point, I agree with everything she said about why the fence was chosen that way, right? It was just, not only was it economical, but it was a little bit smart in design because of all the fires. We're in a wildfire zone. And it seems like the person who doesn't like the way it looks. And that seems to be why we're maybe all on this call and maybe why it's being tested all.
Frank,
Frank,
I think at this point in time, now we're verging into public comment as
sure.
opposed to
No
responding to the question before the applicant.
Gotcha.
That's okay though. You can, why don't we just go ahead and stop there, and then you can also comment during public comment as well, okay?
Sure, thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you all for responding to my questions. I really appreciate it. It helps me understand more clearly what is being proposed and the circumstances around it. So at this point in time, then, I would like to open this meeting item for public comment. Anyone wishing to make a comment on this meeting item may do so by requesting that they be unmuted, and host Buckheit will provide instructions on how to do so.
To make a comment, you can raise your hand by clicking the icon at the bottom of your screen. And if you are phoning in, you can press *9 to raise your hand.
Great, thank you. It does look like we have one person with their hand raised, Miss Shirley. And there we go. Miss Shirley, I believe you are unmuted, and we look forward to your comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I live directly across the street from this home, and for me, I really appreciated the fence going up. I'm not even looking at the height of it, but I appreciated that they put up a fence that, first of all, was environmentally more respectful. We're using way too much wood. We're at a time now where our forests are more vital than ever. So using something that is respectful of the value of forests and their purpose in trying to capture carbon. I also really appreciated it because, and I wish that I could afford to surround my home with a similar steel. I have a large backyard and a large wooden fence, which is basically a pathway for fire. Everything that I've been studying and reading has said that putting in an alternative type of fencing is part of hardening your home. And that's what I've seen that they have done there, including putting in stone around their home that, again, also is hardening their home. So I see it only as a huge benefit. And then lastly, as far as, someone's decision that they don't particularly like it, we don't decide the color of somebody's home. If somebody painted their home bright orange, or I happen to have an orange door, if somebody didn't like that, I don't want somebody making those decisions for me. I didn't move into an elite community that has CC&Rs. And I just think it's very unfair to set rules that haven't been voted on previously, established, and communicated to everyone before a fence is built. So I think we need to respect these people's home and their decisions, and especially grateful to them for building fencing that is fire respectful as well as environmentally respectful. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much for your comments today, Ms. Shirley. And we'll give it just a few more seconds to see if anyone shows up while we do have this public comment period open. Frank, did you want to continue with your comments during this comment period?
Hi, no, I think Shirley captured my comments really well. I appreciate those because it seems like she really captured what we were trying to do with the fence line and what the Callahans were trying to do together. So no, she spoke to it really well. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, well, let's go ahead and move on. There's nobody else in attendance, and we've heard from everybody who is participating in today's meeting. So at this time, I'll close public comment and engage in some discussion and then make a decision. So I appreciate the details about why the fence is needed and the decisions that were made on construction of the fence and the materials that are used. I do think that, when we think about the zoning code and how it regulates fence height with allowing a 6-foot solid fence and two feet of lattice on top of that for an overall height of 8 feet, we do think about the fact that, that would apply to a generally labeled or generally level parcel where you don't have differences in elevations between two parcels. And so it does afford property owners privacy, especially in the backs of their yards. I think that here we have a unique situation in that the property at 1055 Highland Drive doesn't have the benefit of a rear yard in a configuration that we typically would see. And also then with the change in elevation between 1055 Highland and 1105 Crest Drive, we do quickly observe that the amount of privacy that a property owner would typically be afforded is not present in this scenario. And so then the zoning code does provide for the residential fence minor conditional use permit discretionary entitlement to address these situations. So it is appropriate that this project is before us today. And I think that the reasons for the fence are compelling. I also do appreciate the discussion that we've had about the decisions for why the metal panels were chosen as opposed to a typical wood fence that we would oftentimes see, both in terms of the fire prevention characteristics, but then also, as Ms. Shirley has noted, the role that it plays in helping us be a more sustainable and more conscious community. And so I do appreciate that decision, and I do find it compelling. I also would want to point out that the zoning code doesn't specify materials, fencing materials. And so it does, in that sense, does encourage discretion and creativity. We would not have turned to CC&Rs in this case, even if CC&Rs were in place, because the city does not enforce HOA CC&Rs. So I just did want to comment on that for Ms. Shirley, that even if the neighborhood did have CC&Rs, we would not be looking to those CC&Rs. But nevertheless, they would provide guidance to property owners as it relates to civil matters. The one question or the one concern I have purely from an aesthetics perspective is how a future fence at 1055 Highland might intersect with the proposed fence at 1105 Crest Drive. It could look a bit awkward and perhaps unplanned if we do have that standard 6 foot solid with 2 feet of lattice abutting up against a fence that's taller than that. Having said that, we don't have an application for a fence at 1055 Highland before us, and as the property owner has indicated, that's something that he might consider in the future. So I don't necessarily see that there's a need at this point in time to condition this project to address a potential future scenario. But I will, in the through my comments here, strongly recommend that both the applicant, property owner at 1105 Crest, and the property owner at 1055 Highland do work closely together just to make sure that those two fences do abut and continue to reflect the thoughtful design aesthetic that is being proposed today. So with that in mind, I have reviewed the resolution, which is, let me go to that resolution number ZA-2022-013 for a residential fence minor conditional use permit to legalize a 10-foot 3-inch fence, which we understand to be varying in heights, built without benefit of permits, constructed along the western boundary of the property located at 1105 Crest Drive. I do find that I can make all of the findings that have been recommended by Ms. Shikali, and also that I can find that the proposed project is in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act and qualifies for a Class 3 exemption under Section 15303 subsection E. And so with that, I do approve this residential fence minor conditional use permit and advise the applicant that today's approval is subject to a 10-day appeal period, which would close on March 14, 2022, as well as the fact that because this approval will either in part or in full resolve your code enforcement violation, to work closely with your code enforcement officer to complete fulfillment of that violation. And so with that, this project is approved. And that brings us then to the close of agenda item number 4. We'll move on to agenda item number 5, which is adjournment of today's meeting. And seeing no other business before the zoning administrator, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for your participation.